is like a mini Blessing of Sanctuary, and you also get stamina on top of that. It will reduce your strength and agility by 5, which is not that big of a deal, and also increase magical damage taken by up to 20, but the whole idea of this build is to avoid casters as much as possible and face enemies that will attack you in melee, so you will get the most out of this trinket if you do it correctly. And you get this trinket by completing Mother's Milk, which is a quest that you get from Ragged John in the Burning Steppes. Then Smolder Web's Eye is also a very nice little trinket that you can get your hands on, which poisons the target for 20 nature damage every 2 seconds for 20 seconds. So this trinket is going to be used if you want to make sure that one single enemy. Now another cool one that you can get is the so different, and it is the will reflect 5 nature damage. We are going to if you are farming Gnomeregan with a friend, either for manual crowd pummelers or for this build while farming the Thermoplug Central Wild Shaper in Dire Maul, so it's not going to be available before phase 2. You want to reflect damage back to the attacker, and you can damage to anyone who strikes you with a melee attack. So again, I've personally seen it only drop once in OBRS, so it might be armor. This is going to help on top of all your consumables build work very well. So that's it for the part of the gears. Now we will go over the many different consumables that you can use to make your life a whole lot easier. But note that the consumables that we will go over are not the best in their category, because the whole idea of this build is to make it viable with the least amount of resources. I mean, if it required Naxxramas Best in Slot gears, a Thunder Fury, a Flask, and the blood of your mother to make it work, then it wouldn't really make sense for me to show you that build. But at the same time, if you have access to more or better consumables than the ones that I'm about to show you, then you can definitely use them. Knock yourself out. Alright, so the first one on the list is the Crystal Spire, which is a consumable that I discovered while researching for this build. I didn't know about that beforehand. So what it does is surrounds the friendly target with a crystal shield, doing 12 damage to anyone who hits him. Lasts 10 minutes, 5 minute cooldown, so you can get a 100% uptime with those items, which is very nice because it's like your personal little lightning shield. For an alliance player, it's obviously very cool to have. How do you get this? Well, it's quite easy. When you get in Ungoro for the first time, you have to pick up, I think it's 7 power crystals of every color. Then once you get to Martial Refugee, at the back there's a cave, and at the end of the cave there's a little gnome, and then you turn in your power crystals. Then she will give you 3 quests, one for the western, one for the northern, and one for the eastern pylon. When you discover every single pylon, you get back to her, and then she will give you a quest making sense of it. Then after a couple seconds, she will give you a book, and that book pretty much tells you that if you go to certain pylons with a certain combination of crystals, you can get some consumables out of that. Now, thanks to our friend Althres here on the Classic DB, he took the time to tell us what you can get from each pylon, and the one that we are looking for is the eastern pylon. So to get 6 crystal spire, you need 10 yellow and 10 blue crystals.
I have to have blacksmithing.
At other pylons, you can get a spirit buff, grenades,
my god,
instant health, and an armor buff or debuff. Another consumable that you can be using is Oil of Immolation, which is a mid-tier recipe of alchemy. It's very cool because it deals damage to everybody around you, and it will deal 250 damage in total, so 5 hits of 50 fire damage. So very cool and easy to craft, and not all that expensive to craft as well. Now, the third consumable on our list is one that is well known amongst tanks, and it's the Dragon Breath Chili. Occasionally belches flame at the enemies struck in melee for the next 10 minutes. Other consumables that you can get are Elixir of Greater Intellect and then the Scroll of Intellect. What is cool about the potions and the scrolls, even though they give you the same stats, they can stack together. If you are lacking a certain specific stat, you can use both the Elixir and the Scroll together to fill in the gap. You can also get the Elixir of Giants and the Scroll of Strength, Elixir of Greater Agility and the Scroll of Agility, Arcane Elixir for some nice spell power, Elixir of Greater Defense and the Scroll of Armor, Elixir of Fortitude and the Scroll of Stamina, Scroll of Spirit, and last but definitely not least, Thorium Shield Spike. Now, this is the only, I know it's an enchant, but this is the only enchant that is mandatory in the whole build, because when we went over the gears section, you saw that the gears were not enchanted. It's because the gears don't need to be enchanted to make the build work, but if you want to go ahead, definitely do it, or if you already have enchants on your gears, that's even better. but Thorium Shield Spike is the only one that is mandatory, and that's why I put it in this list. Now let's get into the gameplay aspect. So I have 10 steps here for you to follow. So first one, make sure you're all buffed up, make sure you have Blessing of Sanctuary, make sure that Retribution is on as well, and use all of your trinkets and miscellaneous items that will give you a buff before you get into combat. So let's say your Heart of the Scale or your Gigaflux Helm, for example. Then use also all of your scrolls, your potions, and if you have friends or other players around you, ask them if you can get one of their buffs, such as the Arcane Brilliance, Prayer of Fortitude, etc. Then, step 2, mount up and gather as much NPCs as you can handle. Like we've been saying many times during this guide, 5 to 10 should be what you typically aim for. Now step 3, once they are all gathered up, drop a max rank consecration on the ground. And step 4, use a Seal of Light or Seal of Wisdom, and use a Judgment on the target that has to die first to apply a Judgment of Light or Judgment of Wisdom, depending on which you realize that you need more. If it's health, Seal of Light. If it's mana, Seal of Wisdom, obviously. Then step 5, reapply another seal. This time it can be, again, Seal of Light or Seal of Wisdom, or Seal of Righteousness. Then step 6, it's going to use your unused trinkets, such as your Rammstein's Lightning Bolts, and consumables if needed, such as an Oil of Immolation. Then step 7, heal if necessary. If you are fighting 5 to 7 mobs, you shouldn't need to switch to Concentration Aura, but if you're fighting more than that, 7 to 10 or maybe a little bit more, you probably need to switch to Concentration Aura that way, because you're going to take a lot of pushback otherwise. Then step 8 is to reapply your seals and your judgments as needed. This is what you will be doing all the time throughout the fights. Then step 9 is going to drink and eat after each pull, and then step 10, rinse and repeat! There you go. So these are the 10 easy steps that you can follow to make this build work like a charm. Alright, so now let's go over some grinding spots that you can go to with this build. So you'll want to focus on areas with a lot of melee NPCs, obviously, as you want to maximize the efficiency of your Blessing of Sanctuary. Blessing of Sanctuary is great against multiple smaller hits, like we've been saying all this guide, but spells take much longer to cast and hit you way harder. So if you pull casters along with melee NPCs, what's going to happen is that all the melee NPCs are going to follow you and stay in melee range, but the casters will cast from afar and will only get in melee range once they have run out of mana. So to save you some time, I made a list of some great farming spots for you. So we'll start in the Western Plagueland, and just for the sake of comparison, I have spots that are very nice, some others that are quite nice, and one that is very, I don't want to say bad, but it's one that you should go to only if all else fails, and if you really don't have anywhere else to go because everything else is contested. So the first one with only one little smiley face is the Weeping Cave. What can you expect to fight there? Rotting behemoths, decaying horrors, and the husk, which is a rare. And what can you get? Gold, Heart of the Wild, Major Healing Potion, and Living Essence is what you will get most of the time in. And that's the most important loot. Obviously, you can get some other stuff that are quite bad. And the problem with this grinding spot is that it's quite a small cave. I mean, it's a cave, so you can grind there quite peacefully because it's not a very well-known zone and there's not a lot of things to do there. So you will be able to grind quite peacefully, but I mean, to get there, you need to go through quite a lot of slime NPCs, and we all know that those drop very shitty loot. I mean, they can drop the oozing bag, but I think it's like less than 5% chance to drop, so it's really bad loot. And on top of that, if you go there for some gold per hour, you will be very disappointed. But still, I just wanted to give you an idea of what's the one little smiley face grinding spot. And then not too far from the Weeping Cave is the Northridge Lumber Camp, which is a 2 smiley face grinding spot. What will you be facing there? Scarlet Lumberjack and also Scarlet Knights, but you want to avoid those Knights as much as possible because they have a very nasty knockdown that it will hurt your efficiency. But the Lumberjacks are very easy to fight, and there are quite a lot of those in this area. And what can you expect to get from this spot? Gold, lots of Mage Weave, some Rune Cloth, and Major Healing Potion. And the NPCs there are quite easy to fight, so that is why there's 2 smiley face for this. One spot that is 3 smiley face, which is where you will want to grind most of the time, is Sorrow Hill. What will you face there? Slavering Ghoul and Skeletal Flayers. What can you expect to get there? Gold, Rune Cloth, Major Healing Potion, and a lot of items for your Archidon rep. Scourge Stones, bone fragments, osseous, agitator, and somatic intensifier. It's so good that it's 3 smiley faces, but I mean, if it could be 4, it would be 4, but it would be brought down to 3 smiley face because it's heavily contested, obviously. It's right beside Chillwind Camp, so there might be other Alliance players that will be grinding there, and it's also very close to Tirisfal Glade and the Bulwark, so obviously the Horde will also be willing to go there, and it's a very easy grinding spot, especially for your Argenton reputation, so it's going to be heavily contested, but if you are lucky during the downtime in the servers or during the hours where there's not as much players, obviously you can go there, but expect to be ganked, or expect other players to also want, of your faction, to also want to farm there. But other than that, a great grinding spot. Another very cool grinding spot is the Dalson's Tier, which is again 3 smiley faces. What can you expect to fight there? Skeletal terrors, blighted zombies, and rotting cadavers. What can you expect to get? Gold, rune cloth, major healing potion, and other items for your Argenton rep, Scourge Stone, Somatic Intensifier, and Osseous Agitator. Now, out of all the little farmstead in Western Plagueland, this is by far the best. The other one are rather cancerous because the type of enemies that you will fight there are very bad, especially for a build that is built around AoE farming. If it was really like a blow up build where you just blow up one target after the other, then it would probably be better. But all the other farmstead, I would say just ignore them because you will not get a lot of ROI for the time invested. And there again, you can get a lot of gold, rune cloth, major healing potion, and Argenton reputation items. Now we will go to the completely opposite end of the world in Silithus, to the southwestern part of the world in the Crystal Vale. Now, 2 smiley face and a half. What can you expect to fight there? Desert Rumblers and Desert Stormers. Why is it only 2.5 smiley face and not 3? Well, that's because the Desert Rumblers and the Stormers are quite high level compared to you. They are about 58 to 60, so you won't be able to kill as many in the same amount of time, but they will still drop some very nice loot. So what can you expect to get there? Gold, Core of Element, Solid Stone, Deep Rock Salt, and then Elemental Earth, Core of Earth, and Essence of Earth from the Desert Rumblers, and from the Desert Stormers, Elemental Air, Breath of Wind, and Essence of Air. Just a last note, be careful when you are pulling a few Desert Stormers because they can use their Thunderstorm AoE ability where you are standing that can deal low-key a lot of damage if you're not being careful, so just be sure to be careful when you're pulling those. Alright, so now we get to the north of Kalimdor and to Felwood, and you will see that this is a very nice zone because there's quite a few grinding spots that are very good for this build. So Deadwood Village, 2 smiley faces, Deadwood Gardeners and Deadwood Warriors are what you will want to farm effectively, and just be careful of Deadwood Pathfinders that are range NPCs. So what can you expect to get there? Gold, Corrupted Soul Shard for cleansing the Fellwood Flowers, Mage Weave Cloth, and then Deadwood Headdress Feather for your Timber Mahol rep. Jade Fire Gland is another nice grinding spot, 2 smiley faces, and you can face a lot of Jade Fire Satyr there, but be careful of the Jade Fire Felsworn, which are kind of warlocks and they attack you with Shadow Bolt and stuff like that. If you are fighting ranged opponents like that, just make sure that you bring all the other melees to the casters, and even if he casts you in melee range, well, at least you can attack everybody at the same time. He won't be far away and not taking damage until he gets into melee range. So again, you can get gold, soul shards, mage weave cloth, demonic runes, and fell cloth. These are quite important, and you can make quite a lot of gold with those. And just for the demonic rune, this is going to be obviously important for you if ever you want to do some raiding. And now Runes of Constellas, which is another 2 smiley face grinding spot. You will face Jadefire Rogues and Jadefire Shadowstalker, but again, be careful of the Felsworn. What can you get there? Pretty much the same thing that you can get from a Jadefire Glen, but on top of that, you can also get some Rune Cloth. So, very nice. Felpaw Village, another 2 smiley face grinding spot. Be sure to only attack Deadwood Avengers and Deadwood Den Watchers, and make sure to avoid Deadwood Shamans as much as possible because they are casters, but it can also heal their friendly targets and themselves. So, I mean, if you have too many at the same time, you will just spend a lot of time attacking the same mobs that keep healing themselves. What can you expect to get? Gold, Corrupted Soul Shard again, Rune Cloth, Major Healing Potion, and Deadwood Headdress Feathers for your Timber Mahol rep. A grinding spot that I discovered that I didn't know was so nice before I did this video is the Iron Tree Woods. 3 smiley faces. Why? Because you will face Iron Tree Stompers, Iron Tree Wanderers, Toxic Horrors, and Iron Beak Screechers notably. What can you get from that spot? Quite a lot of interesting items. Gold, Corrupted Soul Shard, Heart of the Wild, Major Healing Potions, Globe of Water, Essence of Water, and Elemental Water from the Water Elementals, Iron Feather from the Iron Beak Screechers, along with some Giant Egg for your cooking recipes. And Iron Feathers are crafting resources, if I'm not mistaken, for the Leather Workers. And you can also get some very nice Argent Dawn reputation items, such as Sabertrond and Core of Elements, which is obviously very cool. And also Darkmoon Fair reputation item, such as the Vibrant Plume. So this is a very nice grinding spot. Mobs are not too far apart, so that you can constantly pull 4 to like 7 to 8 at the same time, which is what you want to aim for most of the time. So now we go with the last grinding spot, because I don't want to tell you every single grinding spot that you can go to. You will probably find the ones that work better for you. But now we go through the Timber Maw Hold to Winter Spring to the Timber Maw Post. 2 smiley faces. You will face Winterfall Totemic, Winterfall Den Watchers, and Winterfall Pathfinders. And what can you expect to get? Gold, Rune Cloth, Winterfall Echo, Winterfall Firewater, Major Healing Potion, and Winterfall Spirit Beads for your Timber Maw Hole reputation. Alright, so we are already at the end of this guide, and I wanted to take some time to give you a little analysis of this build. So it was a lot of fun to play, and I must say that the results are quite surprising. I never thought to have this amount of success with such a build. Now, it won't turn you into an AoE farming monster that will be able to outclass mages, for example, but it's still able to pull its own weight. It is also rather easy to get started with, but I would personally advise you to wait until you have more gears to make it easier on you. Your tier 2 set is extremely versatile, which is why I advise you to wait. If you don't like the playstyle, for example, you can easily switch back to your healing spec or any other spec, and most of your gears will still be suited for the job, so use this to your advantage.
Interesting.
If you're super excited to try this new build, then I definitely encourage you, but I think that with more gears, you will be able to maximize your time and effort, and you will put the odds in your favor if ever you are ganked. But I strongly advise you to try it if you play on a PvE server, as this is the best case scenario. You don't have to worry about players of the other faction ganking you, and you can focus all of your attention on efficiency. Just be aware that the server that I was on during my testing had a rather low population, so if you play on a popular server, it might be difficult to farm peacefully without members of either faction messing up your vibe. And what really motivated me to make this guide was the stigma that it is still around the Paladin class that says that they are only good for healing or for dispensing buff. And I think that this is a very narrow point of view, as you can do so much more if you have the right gears, and if you have the will to try something new and think outside the box. Being a hybrid class has its downsides, yes, but it also has its upside, and I think that it's better to focus on that rather than on the negative. And if you made it this far in this guide, you're super awesome, thank you very much. And I hope that you've enjoyed this new way to play the Paladin, and you have all the tools here to help you succeed if ever you want to try this build. So until next time, guys, hopefully sooner this time,
Have a good one.
and stay blessed.
The hippogriff is a noble beast, proud and swift. They are an honor to train and can quickly take their rider a great distance.
complex defense.